Hey folks, today's going to be a slightly different structure than our usual. We had some recording issues with the start of the episode, though they quickly resolve. And we had a question that we thought was perhaps too important to bury at the end of the episode, and we managed to answer completely spoiler-free. So we're going to start with a 9-minute discussion on the purpose of unreliable narrators, and then we're going to dive into our actual discussion about Seven Surrenders. So enjoy, sit back, and try not to get too angry at my bad microphone. If you feel like skipping that section, go about 9.5 minutes in and you'll hit our actual episode start. Editor Kip, signing off.
Ian asks, what is the benefit of an unreliable narrator?
What's the benefit of any literary technique? Is, I guess, a question I have to that question. You can add layers of ambiguity to the story. You can add thematic complexity. You can force the readers to interrogate the text in a more close way than they perhaps would if it was just, like the word of God coming down from the heavens. There's a lot to recommend unreliable narrators, I think. And it can also serve to provide strong emotional reactions on the part of the reader. One among them might be frustration, right? But that can be intentional. That doesn't necessarily need to make for a worse reading experience or a less valuable time reading. Yeah, in terms of pure enjoyment, I think perhaps there's less to recommend an unreliable narrator, but why are you reading books, right? I think there's a great debate to be had on the value of entertainment versus other reasons to read, right? I think there are other reasons to read. One among them is examining your beliefs or developing a more thorough understanding of the world.
I've said before, and I've said many times, I don't think reliable narrators exist. And I think viewing any narrator as an unreliable narrator is just the way to respect the narrator as a narrator, if that makes sense. Like you said, it adds thematic complexity, but also gives character complexity. You have to look at the narrator and what they're thinking and what biases they are bringing into the story and how that influences the way that you see it and the way that they see it and the way that you want them to take it. You get a deeper understanding to their psychology. Or it could add suspense to a story if the narrator is directly lying to you, and even if they're not directly lying to you, they just don't have all the information. These things could come as surprises, and mystery and suspense are always interesting in stories. Maybe not always, but I think that's a valuable part of reading many stories. I don't know about you, but I like active reading. I think just blindly accepting everything that a narrator tells you is kind of boring.
I was with you, Hurin, until that point.
Why?
What?
I think that blindly accepting what a narrator tells you is totally fine for some types of stories. But I do think that those stories do not resemble humanity. I think that if you're blindly accepting what a character tells you, and that is the intention of the author, that author has not written a human. That author has just written a caricature of a human. I think that as long as you're in a first person or second person or close third person narration style, every narration style is unreliable. Humans invariably are illogical creatures that do not respond to stimuli in the ways that you would expect, in the ways that rationality would suggest, and that if you don't take a psychological component of that into your writing, you have failed to create a reasonable human being.
I think you can even extend this to the third person omniscient, because
I disagree with that, as long as you restrict yourself to actions.
So it's omniscient, right? That theoretically you have access to all the information. Why are you choosing to present the events and portions of the events the way that you do, even?
I wouldn't call that an unreliable narrator.
An author and a narrator absolutely cannot give a person all of the information available. They can, it's the same way that news organizations in real life create narratives. They show certain things, they don't show certain things, they tell us certain things, they don't tell us certain things, and that creates a narrative. And narratives themselves are unreliable by nature.
You can even see this with documentaries, right? Documentaries, the conceit is that, or the naive conceit of them is that they're just showing you the facts of the matter on a certain topic. But the fact is that the person who made the documentary is choosing these scenes to show you, and they're choosing to have the shots framed in such a way And even if there's no one telling you what to think about these shots, chances are you're going to have an emotional reaction of some kind. And it's probably going to be pretty similar to what the documentarian is intending you to have.
Yep.
Unless you're interrogating what the documentarian is doing. And in that case, you can have a different understanding of what's going on.
I don't think that necessarily ties into the concept of an unreliable narrator, though. I wouldn't use the same words to describe those two different things.
That's kind of getting at what Hurin was saying about that no narrator is fully reliable, but I do think there's...
If you're in third person omniscient, I wouldn't necessarily call that a narrator. That's just an author at that point.
Well, someone's narrating the story, right?
No, not always.
Yes, always.
There is a window through which the story is being presented, which would be...
Yes.
Since we're not experiencing the story, so yeah. Or we're not, like, physically in the story, so yeah. Yeah, I largely agree with what was said about the benefits of an unreliable narrator. I do think that it can sometimes be frustrating, and that's where I think it's helpful to have people to bounce off ideas off of, as far as, like, if you're reading something, like how you're reading something that a narrator is presenting. And I'm thinking particularly Book of the New Sun. Like, I feel like half of what's going on in that story is going over my head. But I think it can be confusing, and that, which is not a bad thing. Like, I think it was whoever brought up the point of reading for enjoyment is not the only reason to read. Like, I think it's like being confused in that sense is not a bad thing, but it is a thing that can happen with an unreliable narrator. And I think it is helpful to have people, or like a wiki or whatever, to bounce your own thoughts off of, to make sure that you're understanding. I don't want to say what the author intended you to understand, but like, yeah, I guess maybe what the author intended in some way, shape, or form.
I think discussion will help any book, but I agree that especially it would help one with a particularly tricky narrator.
Yeah, because at least that unlock the other parts or the other reasons why you'd read if you're not fully
which makes it more enjoyable. I mean, if you have to interact and talk to other people about books, which is a big reason why I think a lot of us like books, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, presumably if someone is making a podcast or listening to podcasts about books like this, you would be interested in doing this kind of analysis of books, right? I think maybe some people get hung up on, like, okay, if the narrator is lying about, like, how can I tell if the narrator is lying? Maybe the whole story didn't happen.
Utopia did it all.
Yeah, right. Like, there can be some merit to that. I think that if there's no way of getting to any kind of truth of the matter, then I think that would probably be fair. But I think often authors don't write unreliable narrators in this way. They will put contradictions in, or they will give you ways to see, to have another perspective on the narration that will give you additional insight into what's going on. In the case of Terra Ignota, Palmer will give you other perspectives deliberately during the writing to contrast with Mycroft's unreliable narration.
And not only that, like, there's nothing wrong with having ambiguity or, like, multiple interpretations of work. In fact, I think better works are like that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good point about the other interpretations. Like, a lot of I think there was more of them in like Two Legged Lightning or earlier in this book, but yeah, like all the people that are inserting notes that are basically saying, like, Mycroft, this isn't what happened. Like, those kind of meta textual things are interesting and aid the story.
Yes. And the permissions page at the beginning of Terra Ignota also helps to ground some of that as well.
I do like that page a lot.
Yeah, we have certified that this is all non-proselytory.
Yep. No attempts to convert here.
No. But I do think that if you don't have an unreliable narrator, or at least if you don't address the idea and concept of an unreliable narrator in your work, you have failed to present a psychologically whole character.
I got a question. You said you disagreed with my final point, but then you just said a bunch of stuff that agreed with my point. What part exactly did you disagree with?
That it's necessarily boring.
I think I said it was boring. I just didn't wonder more interesting.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team and our coverage of Seven Surrenders, specifically the second half, because we're finishing the book today. Yay!
Yay.
Yes.
I think Mycroft would be too scared to the bots if they give it a pronoun.
Well, Mycroft wouldn't want to be responsible indirectly for Roguicide.
Right. Rogue is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get it.
I'm missing something when
Saladin might go around with an EMP or a.
Oh,
I see.
So I'd like to start off the episode by saying thank you all for sticking with the end of this book.
I mean, really, it was no trouble. It's a short book, right? It's not too long.
It's shorter than Two Like the Lightning. It allowed Two Like the Lightning to have enough to be a complete book. This is basically just the conclusion, right?
Yes.
it's part 2. Yeah.
I'll preempt the question. I liked it. This is better than Two Like the Lightning, I think.
I think this is Too Light the Lightning, just with
Yeah,
an
it
ending.
is. It is. Yeah.
I mean, from this point, you could obviously see, how the dominoes lined up in Too Light the Lightning and all the stuff that was just like, why is this even here? Made sense for being there. Even the 710 list.
Yeah.
My hot take here would be I actually think I like To Like the Lightning more.
That
I think
interesting.
I think it's just
This is why we keep you around.
for all of my hot takes. I think it's because the world was felt so new still, and so what was fun about that book for me was how new everything felt, and piecing everything together and figuring out how the world worked was a lot of fun, I think.
I agree.
It was similar to a feeling I had during parts of the Hyperion Encounters by Dan Simmons. As certain things are starting to fall into place, or you're starting to understand or realize the scope of what the work is doing. That's how I kind of felt at True Like the Lightning. Now, like as has been said, this is True Like the Lightning Part 2, and I liked it, but I was just a little more curious to like keep reading when I was reading True Like the Lightning.
I agree completely. It seems like through Too Light the Lightning, you're constantly on your toes, introduced to new characters that are actually important later on. And she does a masterful job of introducing little by little and giving you bits of their characters and making them memorable and drip feeding bits and pieces of the world and all of that. And I think in this one especially, none of that's there.
I had more moments of frustration with this book, but I also actually cared about some of the character moments, which was nice. Because
of that setup from book 1, right?
yeah, now things are established, so I can start caring about the things rather than just having the world continue to be introduced to me and characters thrown at me.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. But what's been frustrating with me for this book is just how on the nose everything is. Like they just got these long conversations that are seemingly repetitive about things that like I already understand what's going on because they've already told me about these things. And then they go over and over again about the philosophical implications or like the way people are thinking based on their actions and whatnot. And I usually love that kind of stuff. It's just so much of it, and it's not really subtle.
Yeah, it's a little. I'm going to use the word preachy. That's not like I don't mean that in the way that it's usually used in regards to social or like political commentary, but like it is a lot of this is the point. You get the point, right? Like this is the point, which I think is not a. It wasn't a huge frustration for me, but looking back, I wasn't spurred on to keep reading when we're in a 4-page monologue about whatever. Well, there's one in particular I'm thinking of, but there are another.
I would agree with the statement that it's preachy if the criticism is pointed at the characters instead of the author herself.
Yes, okay, that's a better way to phrase it.
Because I really don't feel like Dr. Palmer is, I don't know, telling me how I should think about these things because there are so many perspectives and so many different ways of looking at them. But the characters themselves are really focused on, their personal philosophy or their group philosophy, etc.
Yeah, that's a good clarification of the preachy definition.
I'd like to clarify, I also don't mind didactic literature. In some ways,
Yeah.
Crackpot Trail is didactic.
It depends on execution. I tend to prefer when things are left unsaid.
I agree. I do prefer that.
It can be done well.
think the only part in which this book is truly didactic is when it explains the philosophies for laymen. So, for
Yes.
example, when it explains like what a fideist is, or a clockmaker god, or things like that.
I like that when I don't know the concepts already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those parts I didn't mind because
Which is a totally unfair criticism because like I can't just expect her to write this for me.
Yeah, and she can't write the same explanations in different ways for you every time that you read this book.
Yeah.
yeah, the little explanations I didn't mind because not being as familiar with all of the concepts, but I can see where it is a little forced.
There are also some scenes where the characters just like literally shouting their philosophies at each other.
That's where it gets
And
I mean, like, I'm not going to criticize a modest proposal for being preachy. I mean, it's got its point. And also, it's brilliant. You look like you have something to say.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I do. Again, like I'm just kind of struck by how dripping with drama this series is. I don't imagine the drama's going anywhere. At some times, again, it felt kind of like a soap to me. At some times, the excessive drama worked for me.
It's very anime.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
When it works because of Mycroft's narration, in the sense that Mycroft is dramatic about everything. So that not everything, but how he presents things is like everything. Almost everything's a soliloquy of some or monologue of some sort, which does work for all of the relationship stuff.
Yeah, I think 100% of everything we're getting from Mycroft's perspective, and from the other ones, of course, but especially Mycroft, since he's the particular way we're experiencing the world, is exaggerated to a very stylistic extent that he's going for.
Yes. I mean, they were very dramatic in the 18th century.
Yeah, especially in the writing.
Yeah, it's a stylistic choice. And so I don't have much of a strong opinion yet about how well I think Dr. Palmer is executing this stylistic choice. For some characters, it's working for me, and some characters, it's not working for me. And that may just be because I just despise like I don't even despise them. I just roll my eyes and I think these characters are not fun to follow. There's like too much. But then there's also other characters where it's like, I mean, you could argue they're too much as well, but I just don't care as much because I find them more compelling.
Are you going to tell us which later?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
are we in spoilers? I can tell you when we get to spoilers.
No, I know. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can guess which characters.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one reason why I liked this half of the book more, I think, is because certain characters that I find irritating got sidelined.
Really?
And I hope they never come back. They will, but I can dream.
I know one's not coming back.
Death seems relative at times, for depending on how you look at it.
Yeah,
Death is not relative. What are you talking about?
Okay. Yeah, I can't really say anything else without going into spoilers, even if it's.
I'm having frustrating flashbacks of conversations related to death right now.
Oh yeah, recent ones, eh?
Yeah, recent ones indeed.
So I think we've talked about our initial impressions of this book. I'm going to give mine now. I love this book. It has some of my favorite chapters in the series. It is just a row of concluding chapters, tying off ends and telling us things that we thought we might have known, maybe things we didn't quite know or had guesses about, and then finishing it all off with a cliffhanger that makes me immediately want to read the next book.
Those are all things that I could agree with.
Yep.
I agree with that. I am very interested to see where the next book is going.
Yes.
There's a lot of plot, and it's all really pretty tightly packed, other than the criticism I had earlier. Mostly really interesting characters and ideas and factions. Yeah.
And some lovely Mycroft speeches.
Yeah.
And some lovely speeches by other people, which are maybe only slightly less truthful than Mycroft.
And then a really sad ending.
Pretty sad, yeah. I'm wanting more of the contrast and the high philosophies. I feel like that took a back seat ever since the first half of Too Like the Lightning. And I want it to come back.
Oh yeah, because that's when you learn about the polycule and such.
I'm also excited for the inevitable arrival of anybody who's not one of the top 0.0001% of the world's power.
I
Well, they're not allowed to name the servicers.
I would settle for any ordinary citizen.
I think that we might not be getting that.
Hey, Saladin's nobody.
Yeah.
He's a dog.
Right.
He's a ghost.
He's a ghost that happens to be an accomplice in the most famous crime in history.
Yeah, our nobody.
Just of the last, 15 years.
Okay. All right, sorry, yeah, maybe not
20
in
years or
history,
whatever.
but-
Yeah.
I mean, recently
Okay.
upstaged.
Yeah, I don't think that's coming, Ash. So don't get your hopes up.
No, I'm patiently waiting. I mean, I guess Dr. Palmer's probably making a point about how, yeah, when we look at the text of the past, we don't get ordinary citizens either. But I'm still frustrated.
We get a famous bit about a copper salesman who maybe wasn't quite so honest.
Do we? Oh man, I don't remember that.
No, I'm talking
Right.
about texts of the past.
Oh,
Mesopotamia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
What's his name? You Nasir or something?
That sounds right. I thought it was Nadir.
Something like that. May his name live in infamy. So let's take the spoiler gloves off a bit, and I'm just going to give a brief summary for those who maybe didn't read the book or have forgotten exactly what happens in this one. We pick up with Ganymede and Casimir Perry falling through a stained glass window into a brothel, which gets broadcast on all of Sniper's cameras. We immediately cut to the OS bash as defectors within the EU Parliament have made OS public. Then Occam and the rest of OS get arrested. Carlisle talks to someone who believes that he is God. The whole polity of the hives are on the brink of war, and J.E.D.D. Mason arrives at the rostra to denounce OS and the murders
that have kept the hive system together
since the introduction of Cartesian set sets. And then he gets assassinated. Then he gets resurrected by Bridger. Then Bridger kills himself. And then Mycroft is like, please, maybe there can be a bright future still. Maybe.
and all the 7 hives surrender, of course.
Well, at various points,
Will-
flashbacks mostly.
Yes, through flashbacks, some of the hive surrender. And I'm going to say right up front now that Mitsubishi does not surrender.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
It's like a conditional
surrender
surrender.
There's only
themselves.
6 surrenders, so why isn't it called 6 surrenders?
Don't they surrender themselves to Dominic?
Yeah.
They appoint Dominic as a head. I would not call it a surrender to Dominic.
They surrender their power as the leaders of Mitsubishi to some crazy black law. That's a surrender.
They don't surrender all their powers. They just
It's a conditional surrender. It's not like a complete submission.
That's still a surrender.
So is the Utopians is a very conditional surrender.
because remember, all of the directors do not have the power directly. They have it as liege lords for their stockholders or their blocks. And Dominic has to try and keep all of those blocks together in order to have the Mitsubishi directorate.
Still
I mean,
surrender.
really, there's another surrender because Bridger surrenders his life.
Yeah.
Should be 8 surrenders.
I would argue
then.
that that is the actual 7th surrender.
Yeah,
I'd say
there you
there's 8 surrenders.
I'm with Hurin. There's 8.
The book says that the 8 living Leviathans conspire to put J.E.D.D. Mason at their head.
Would they be the 7 hive leaders? Although there's not one for Utopia. Plus Madame.
Or just the 7 hives plus
go. The Anonymous?
Okay,
Yeah.
the 7.
Kind of an-
Oh yeah, the Anonymous. That makes sense.
Is the Anonymous a Leviathan in the term of Hobbes, though? Or
Like,
is
not-
Romanova?
But Mason's the head of Romanova, yeah.
I mean, Romanov is technically just like a municipality district, right?
Sorry. The Free Alliance.
Ah,
Okay, then who are the 8 Leviathans?
Well, the 7 hives, and then the larger hive body.
So one Leviathan consumed the other, and it's still somewhat Godhead type of.
It's the meta
situation, where-
Leviathan, actually.
What is it? It's like a Pascal Holy Trinity type of deal where it's both is the 8th one and is above all
none.
the 8 ones. Yeah, and none.
Yeah.
I don't think that quite actually works as a Trinity because
No,
Trinitarianism is complicated.
that was a horrible analogy, but I don't know. It was Who's the
No,
one
it's
that,
where
in
my
your
mind
By
went
mind?
like
to
the
too, but I
Trinity, you
realized
mean like
afterward it doesn't make
20%
sense.
like?
Yeah.
I find it deeply amusing that Madame conquered the world, I guess, purely through kink, like blue balls.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where I really had to stretch my disbelief.
Right? Like they're all just like, oh, we can't get it sexually excited by anybody beyond here now. So I
She
guess we're just
programmed me. I have to have sex with my brothers and sisters and kill people while I have sex, and it's like, no.
I mean, why wouldn't they? Couldn't they just like set up another brothel?
That's
That's the only way they can get off.
Oh, you could say
Set up
that, like,
another gender brothel, but just
Yeah.
don't put Madame at the head. Make it a Hubie's.
it's probably less so the sex and more so the fact that they could talk about religion.
that's certainly how Dominic uses it.
Just set up that brothel then too. Like it's
Yeah.
so easy.
Set up another 18th century brothel in the style of Desaad, just not headed by Madame. Right?
It doesn't need to
Obvious
be 18th
solution.
century.
World
Yeah.
solved.
It's like no problems.
I just imagine all of the world leaders are like Pavlov's dog, and talking about religion is triggered by also the pleasure of sex. And they're just like, I gotta have it.
Do we even see them talk about religion?
No, because this has to be non-proselytory, right?
No, but Dominic and Julia do when they're having like their whole thing is like they're having sex.
No, but like the world
Hey,
leaders.
allegedly, Julia and Dominic. Allegedly.
okay, okay.
I could have sworn when that chapter happened, like it was just outright stated it was Julia and Dominic.
I thought it.
It was
maybe
not.
didn't.
No.
Like I had no doubt in my mind when that chapter was finished, it was those two.
It's a mirrored scene of the one from I think the end of To Like the Lightning, right?
It's a mirrored scene from Desaad.
Or not? Yeah.
But yeah, no,
I-
there are no names used. There's just a disturbing level of coincidence in the fact that Mycroft is the one being kept in the closet and Sniper's the one being captured, and they talk about it with a continuity of bargains and deals being made. Yeah, no, there's no ambiguity except in a legal fiction.
Good job, Palmer.
But
Um,
allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly. So if it turns out that we know all the important characters and all the important people in the world, so
Unless the eighth
Yeah.
Leviathan is somebody we haven't met yet.
or like maybe some utopians that are hanging around, but
There's a Servicer Cabal.
How did you feel about the reveal of the Anonymous?
Totally neutral.
yeah, I didn't. That did basically nothing for me.
Felt like it was
Yeah.
supposed to be like a big reveal, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
care.
You already knew.
It's like, oh yeah, sure, I guess that makes sense. All right.
It also felt like not the most important thing happening at the time because like it's the hives are crashing down and here's the Anonymous. Okay, I don't have particular thoughts and feelings on this.
Yeah, like here's
Okay.
the political pundit that
Yeah, you're already somebody that has immense power. I guess you just have a little more influence.
You don't care about Brody DeLupa?
Well, he's not the Anonymous though. Oh no, because DeLupa's not the Anonymous, right? It's Vivian.
He's the Anonymous's proxy.
Or yeah.
But I thought he was entertaining in his downfall.
he was entertaining.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I like it for two reasons. First, I thought it was a really cool scene where he's just like, and the Anonymous wants this to happen. And then, was it Papa? Just like, shut up, man. Shut up.
Yep.
Yeah.
He just kept it going over and over again. Like, if you're going to step over this line, I thought it was really, really tense. And I enjoyed that aspect. And then I enjoyed Mason, like, getting past all the barriers. And then people are just, like, on the edge of their seat. And then when it's finally revealed and he shows himself, and then the reveal of who it is, and it's actually the husband of Briar Casal, who has been cheating on her husband with the Anonymous, and vice versa.
Yeah. What do you feel about affair play when the person that you're doing the affair play is your marriage partner?
Hey, whatever,
think
it seems
whatever gets your
like
rocks off.
fair roleplay, I guess.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's the only way that they can have sex now.
I don't know. I don't understand.
I like hearing maybe it is the Pavlov's dog to like the next level of only Or maybe Madame is a witch and has cast a spell in her brothel, and that's just the only place that people can
Just like the sex
turn on.
pheromones are
Yeah.
the only in the brothel now.
That's as good an explanation as any, I think. Maybe she got help
Yeah.
from the Utopians.
I mean, she's got the best and brightest of the Utopians, right? We now finally learn that, and she can ask for anything she wants. Do you think that she's above using pheromones to psychologically manipulate her
I
subjects?
can't think of anything that she would be above doing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't.
She's pretty terrible.
She's really terrible.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I think who's worse? Maybe Julia?
Dominic,
So,
sniper.
Yeah.
Sniper's pretty
Sniper.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Sniper's terrible. I do
Yeah,
not
Sniper
like
sucks.
Sniper at all.
I hate Sniper.
I don't.
I don't like. Yeah. I don't.
Not only do I not like Sniper, I find Sniper very uninteresting.
Oh, I love Sniper.
Wow.
Yeah.
I liked Sniper more before the last.
I
Well,
hate him, but I like him.
You're still going with masculine pronouns for Sniper?
I was waiting
Sorry.
for someone to say that.
I hate it.
I hate all of it.
I hate Sniper's speech that it gives after it assassinates JEDD Mason.
that's
It's
such a
a
good
little
speech.
mixture of lies and truth.
No, that's
I
why
thought-
it's so good.
I thought that one was fine.
No, it was such a good speech. It's such BS.
No, I hate
So
Sniper for
bad.
delivering that speech because I hate the humanists.
The humanists suck.
Humanists are seriously the worst hive.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't help that like they're the ones like they're president in charge of the assassination guild.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It does
helps
not. No.
But even before the reveal, they kind of sucked, and they were just kind of everything I don't like about humanity.
Yeah. Just like totally self-obsessed.
They allow dueling in their legal
Yeah,
code.
that's
Still not a fan
That's
of that.
true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's not-
like it's fine later, but I found it so implausible in the moment. And the duel while disclaiming political philosophy. I
Oh,
was just
come
like,
on.
No, this is terrible. I hate it.
Hey, in a book full of speeches, the villain or antagonistic forces also need to have their speech
I would have been
moment.
fine with it if it was like, so Sniper shot the person and then it's like, I'm gonna play this pre-recorded message for you now. But like, it's so silly. It's so silly. And it's sort of redeemed later because it's like, well, Bridger made it all happen, right? Like all this just like reality warped around this, so it's fine.
That's why it's so good, because it's so silly, and also because it's just so self-serving, and like Sniper is just making excuse after excuse for justifying their existence in the first place.
Like the total narcissism.
It doesn't work if you look at it for like more than 5 seconds.
It's Death Note
It's just so
Death Note.
stupid.
We saw the Sniper Museum.
Museum.
Who else makes a museum of their discarded sex dolls?
It's
That was something.
I don't
I-
understand why Sniper is so popular.
Good question. The scene was a little silly. Like I was fine with it. Well, the dual political philosophy, but it did feel very video game where the enemies take turns attacking the like player character, and when there's like 10 of them
Yes.
surrounding you. Like it did kind of feel like that a little bit.
Literally every police officer in the city is just like staring, like jaw open. Wow, they sure are dueling up there.
They're only allowed stun guns, and they set off little EMPs, which disabled all of the non-lethal weapons.
And I can only assume the EMPs are actual magic powered by Bridger as well.
yeah, of course.
Oh man.
No,
Yeah,
it's
but
Kato magic.
Yeah, so like if
Oh.
it's Kato magic, I hate that. If it's Bridger magic, it's like I'm just forced to accept it.
Who says the two can't mix?
Okay, wait. Bridger didn't know about Kato, right?
Bridger
Bridger
loved
was
Kato.
in Kato's class.
Okay. Oh, maybe Bridger thought that Kato was. Okay, Bridger thought that Kato was the smartest guy in the world. Bridger made Kato the smartest guy in the world.
Bridger could have.
I hate. Sorry, I don't know if I hate it. I'm the fact that just like Bridger warps all of reality around him is it's just the story. I'm glad he's out of the story now.
Is a terrifying concept, and the second that Bridger heard people voice that concept, they became suicidal.
Yeah, which is fair.
I'm going to say something, and it's going to sound weird. I think this book is making me hate anime a little less.
Hilarious.
Awesome. Awesome.
In terms of the because it's over the top.
Yeah, just like something I hate in anime, especially in like fight scenes, or just like exactly what Ash described. It's just like
The pause time.
the pause time where people are like yelling at each other in the middle of a fight and like all tensions like left. I kind of loving it in this book.
And we didn't even get any flashbacks during the fight.
Correct.
That's true.
That was for after the fight, but
Even though Mycroft was telling the story.
The absurd dramatic things that happen and the way that people talk in anime, just especially television shows, I think it's a lot less problem in movies, which is why I primarily watch movies. It's just like I hate it so much, but it works in this book. So thank you, Dr. Palmer.
I do love the excellent reason for why Mycroft couldn't speak more during the time of the resurrection and the fight was because they were having a heart attack the entire time.
It's having a heart attack, yeah.
Oh my god.
That's why they were less than useful.
I do want to circle back to the Ash's point about Bridger. Bridger is the main, and I think I said this before. Bridger is the main thing that I have trouble suspending my disbelief with the series, just because everything else with the technology kind of makes sense. Or, I mean, some of the utopian stuff is kind of pretty hand wavy, but that's so the cars and a lot of it. But it all feels kind of the same, whereas Bridger just feels like magic, basically. And it
is magic,
right? Well, then the magic feels less grounded than even like the utopian stuff does. Because at least the utopian stuff I can explain away as, they're so far advanced that it's the whole like when technology reaches a certain point that you don't understand, it feels like magic. Whereas Bridger, we don't, at least at this point, have any sort of explanation as to why was able to do what he could do. So it just felt
the point. Bridger's like literally just has the power of the god.
And then I think that's what was just where I was having trouble with the suspension of disbelief.
Bridger gets a new name in this book. Did anyone else notice?
What's that?
Oh yeah, what's the name?
By J.E.D.D. Mason.
Oh! It's like it's the other god, one of the gods.
Asclepius, Apollo's son.
Oh,
gotcha.
One of the Greek demigods that brought people back to life.
Okay. Oh, I was going with the utopian stuff.
I actually have no problem with Bridger at all. The Bridger's powers. Because it's like, yeah, that's just a premise of the story. Okay, we have basically God has granted, put this thing into the world. And, within the context of philosophy, that's something that a lot of philosophers, I think, are very interested in. Especially if we're talking 18th century philosophy. And given Jed Mason's existence in the story, I think it makes sense. And the way that Bridger is warping reality, I think, also makes sense. It feels very much like an idealism versus physicalism kind of debate, where the idealists think that mind is the substance of reality, and we could theoretically just all be dreaming the mind of God or ourselves or whatever, versus hard physical matter being the thing. I feel like this series is more idealistic in that sense, and Mason's
absolutely
exemplar of this.
I'll go one step further.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that Bridger is the most important part of the story, and Bridger and Jed are the central ways of which are experiencing the philosophy. I like that philosophy.
I would argue against that only because I put Mycroft above both of them. I think that the point of the story is to have a very fun narrator, and that is what is delivered by Mycroft.
Okay. But like the whole premise, I think, would partially is, a lot of 17th century, 17th, 18th century writing was primarily about, the idea of God. Do they exist? What would life be like without God, etc. It was just very very obsessed with theology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Palmer wrote a story where like, hey, okay, here's God. Maybe this is the God. Maybe it's God sent to you from the other God. And maybe there's another God here. How does this fit into your worldview? And I think the story would not be the same story at all without Bridger, and it would not be the same story at all without Jed. And I think it would be a lot less interesting too.
I think that if this book had all been Too Like the Lightning, I would say that Bridger was the point of Too Like the Lightning. I would not say he's the point of the larger series, but just this book and its introduction.
Oh, Bridger's dead now.
Yes. Too Like the Lightning, gone, everyone can say it lightens.
Or transmogrified.
And now the rest of the series can start. But I would not say that he's like a series thing necessarily. He's maybe a single book thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, now like everybody in the story has to grapple with the fact that there is something divine about this world. You have to talk about religion now.
Yeah. In that sense, like as a conduit to talk about religion and the various philosophical concepts, I think Bridger and Jed are interesting in that aspect. Like having characters have to react to their existence is interesting to kind of to hear his point. But Bridger himself, and he has some interesting moments. I don't know, just maybe it's just something I need to just accept, like what Ash was saying. This just is a part. He just is a part of the world, and what he can just do what he can do.
You get him for a few chapters, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to believe that he's totally gone until we're finished the series, but we're.
And you don't have to be,
Sad-catted.
because you know what? He got replaced with a Achilles.
With Achilles, yeah.
Did anyone
That
else
was
get
an interesting
sad-catted?
choice.
What?
Huh?
Did anyone else get sad-catted?
That is
Oh.
an interesting question that I don't think we
Arguably
can-
everyone that Bridger has encountered.
Arguably the entire world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Bridger's just been raised on war and by crazy people, so he made the world warlike and
Yeah. Arguably, Bridger took a peaceful world and turned it into one of warmongers without knowing it.
damn, Bridger sucks.
That's less interesting to me than the plot that we get, but go ahead.
Oh,
Um,
isn't that the plot that we got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be ambiguous, right?
Kind of.
Going forward, like we have two of the biggest tensions, I think, in Enlightenment philosophies. Okay, there's the religious side, and then there's the political side, and these are both very intertwined with each other. And then Palmer's also interested in later concepts of gender and whatnot. But I think the politics and the religion are at the forefront to me. They're the most interesting parts. And I think it's very interesting now how we have basically the textbook definition of a benevolent despot in charge of the whole world, which is something that a lot of the philosophers at that time, that's what they wanted. That's what they thought the perfect mode of governance was going to be. And around this time, there was a lot of wars of religion, and eventually people just had to learn how to coexist with each other in a way that they're not going to just keep doing these wars against one another. I'm curious to what Palmer is going to bring to the story to further this dialogue, or if she's going to mostly just draw from she's probably going to say something new or a synthesis of some philosophies, I think, but I'm curious where it's going to go.
Okay. Sun Gamer has a question which ties into that.
Okay, I have a question first.
Yep.
Is Jed actually in charge?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So like that's the benevolent dictator you were talking about, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah. So like yeah.
he's like there's like the two large factions right now, right?
Benevolent dictator on deck.
Yeah, this is how Mycroft is setting up the conclusion of the story. Maybe he's incorrect. Like, okay, I don't have the information on that. There is Sniper resisting. Sniper and Sniper's factions resisting. And then there is the uneasy kind of coalition, I think, centered around Jed. And you have the upcoming war, and Jed, I think, is kind of the de facto leader of the governments of the world right now.
No, not
I
really.
don't think so.
Not at all.
No?
He's
No.
not
That was-
directing policy.
So
He's advising the leaders currently, but he's
okay,
not in charge.
advising.
He's a successor for Mason, but he's not Mason.
He's a successor for Mason, and his mom has all the world leaders by the balls.
That
Like
is
I
true.
said, he's on deck. He's ready to ascend, but he hasn't ascended.
Sure. This is something that's being set up, right? Like,
Yes.
clearly.
according to Sniper at least. And lots of evidence that Sniper has that Mycroft says is true. But
Also, it's
like,
very much not clear if the Brain Bash actually leads Gordian.
I nothing about Gordian is clear right now. We get so little of them.
Yeah, we have like the one scene with
2 scenes.
Oh yeah, there's
I think we're ignoring something important, like Jed himself. Do you think Jed would actually lead the world?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if he thought that was the right thing to do, he would do it.
Okay.
Mycroft says
Jed-
no, but he doesn't present any good explanations for that. He just says, like, you
Jed-
just got to
yeah.
know him. He's not that kind of guy.
He's special. Yeah, I mean, Jed is the god of his world. I don't think, like, his big thing is, like, okay, he's now in a finite body, and he misses his omnipotence, so, you know.
I don't know, from the interaction we got with Jed, he doesn't seem all that interested in politics.
We just get Mycroft glossing over every time that Jed actually engages in high politics. He's like, well, I spent 12 hours translating for Jed, but I don't remember anything I said.
Right, like he's in all the meetings with the Mitsubishi directors. He's isn't he the Imperator Destinatus? Or well, we don't
presume to be.
Yeah, presumed to be, like, so it's like he in lots of political.
He literally wrote a new constitution for the cousins.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about as political as you can get.
Yeah, okay.
As Sniper notes, the humanists elect. They can have an election, and if they don't elect Jed, hey, he's not in charge of them. Of course, that only persists as long as the humanists exist.
Which they shouldn't anymore. They're just terrible.
It should have been the first place.
The Olympic Committee should not be a government. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah.
Do we get, I forget, was there confirmation on, so like the cousins were going to merge into the Masons?
Heloise ran into the Senate to stop it.
That's right, but how did that conclude again? Just to refresh me.
Chaos.
Oh yeah, because it ends with Europe getting, with the announcement of like Europe getting attacked, right?
Yes, Europe blows up.
All right, yeah.
Well, yeah, I said the worst person in this story is probably Julia, but sorry, what's
Casimir
his name?
Perry?
Casimir Perry might be worse.
Marion Cray.
That just traces back to Madame, and then her being like, "Oh, I didn't plan all this. I just set up all the pieces."
Okay, that's very true. And she's awful for setting this up and like anticipating it and working off of it and using it as political gain. But he still didn't need to do anything.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But like, she's not even willing to accept responsibility.
Yeah,
right?
she's really terrible.
She's just the worst. Like, at least Casimir's like, I'm doing this.
I am being the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah. She's just like, I just wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Madame?
Oh, I think she is terrible. I think if Sniper was looking to shoot someone, Sniper should have started with Madame.
Yeah, clearly, right?
Second person being himself? Itself?
Yeah.
I mean, Sniper could arrange that with Bridger, right?
Oh, God.
Sniper's way too self-obsessed.
Sniper believes that they are actually not acting on their own volition. Sniper believes that they are just acting out the mandates of their office. And by their office, I mean Occam and Sniper.
Sniper's a total narcissist. Occam has terrible judgment.
Same thing for the dolls too, right? The dolls also aren't really doing their own will. They're just doing Sniper's will, which also considers to be an object. Which makes sense. You know, if they consider themselves an object and they consider themselves an object of the will of the office, then the same thing could be said for the dolls themselves, for the real Sniper.
You can absolve yourself of a lot of responsibility if you just say, well, this is demanded of me, gotta do it.
Sniper sucks.
I like how Occam makes literally not a single good decision the entire series.
What are you talking about? Occam resigns.
Yeah, and gives it to Sniper.
You know, that's the problem when you only have 9 people in your Bosch, which controls the fate of the world.
Yeah, like that was a terrible setup in the first place. I
did like that half of this part of the book just opened with, okay, this is the conflict. This is gonna be the story, and we're not gonna dance around this for another book. Like, I did like that they just flat out made that the plot.
What, the like, gods exist and you got to accept it?
The only other stable person in that Bosch is Leslie, possibly, right?
Possibly. She murders people.
Yeah, I mean, the solution is to not have OS anymore, right?
Because what, are you going to hand it to Thisbe?
Yeah, you're not going to have it anymore. Like, clearly nobody's in their right mind.
They have like the backups for the cars, right? They have like the several backup places.
Backups got destroyed. Salad card
that's
backup
right. Yeah, they
got destroyed.
Yeah, they all got destroyed. That's right.
That's why utopians had to take over the cars. Oh no.
They just had to. Yeah.
What do you think about Sniper's criticisms of Kato?
Glass houses.
Well, no.
Like, yes, Kato thought that they were doing bad and continued to do so. That's not great. But also, I can't believe that Kato was in any free position to make a real choice there.
Kato attempted suicide like 13 times, right?
Way more than 13 times.
Yeah, but okay. Kato is like the master of murder, right? If he actually
Yes.
wanted to kill himself, I think he would be able to kill himself.
I agree. Kato
Yeah, maybe.
always seems to wait to kill themselves. Well, look, you can't be a utopian and commit suicide, right?
I think I view Kato's suicides as more self-punishment, self-flagellation, instead of
agree.
an actual desire to die.
Yeah, maybe. But like Kato's just in a place where they're just emotionally blackmailing him the like entire time, right?
No. Kato's in a terrible position, and I actually feel really, really bad for him. And he actually might be one of my favorite characters. But at the same time, I think Sniper has something to a point.
Sniper has a minor point, I agree. But
Sniper has several points.
is like a total hypocrite.
I don't think that Sniper is in a position of moral superiority because they believed that they were doing the right thing the whole time, though. I don't think that has any effect on the moral outcome of the situation.
Hitler thought he was doing the right thing, right? Like it's like does this make someone morally superior? No, it doesn't. It just makes you deluded.
Then, well, don't you think that OS did its job though?
No, clearly not.
They kept peace for hundreds of years.
Well, apparently there's going to be a trial about that.
OS was clearly corrupt, right? Like it's not a good institution.
I don't know about corrupt.
I'm not a consequentialist, so I think OS is wrong. But I think if they kept the peace like they said they did for as long as they did, Sniper might have a point.
Well, like it depends on like what happens when OS is removed, like found out or removed. Is it an enormous civil war that's worse than what would have happened otherwise?
Right, because they were doing their job well. It's just like to Ash's point, will the ends have? Could you look back and say, do the ends justified the means? Which I'm guessing.
For the record, personally, I think it's wrong in the first place. But yes, that's an important thing to talk about.
I think you also have to ask: was OS doing their job right the second that Casimir Perry told like 90 people about OS?
Perry sucks so much.
But there's
how many people knew before he said anything?
Like a dozen, like maybe maybe 20.
He increased it by like 6-7 times.
Yeah, because there's a few like I think didn't some of the
like
directors
maximum 2 dozen. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like 8 of the directors knew.
Yeah,
they didn't tell the Greenpeace director. The special means committee knew. OS knew, and the humanist president knew.
But like Perry telling the parliament that was his part of his plan to destroy OS, right? So like, I guess I think it was hilarious that the other
was OS doing their job the second they didn't investigate Casimir Perry a little bit harder and find out he was Marion Gray.
Right. I thought it was funny how like Casimir Perry was able to get away with telling the entire European Parliament. It's like, now I have a coalition behind me. And they were upset, but they weren't like, okay, we need to assassinate you right now.
You know what? Brody DeLuca had some good points. You shouldn't be talking about the 3 who came forward as brave. You should be talking about how they were all cowards.
Yeah, that's true. But like with regards to like the ethics of OS, like I'm also just kind of skeptical that you could even make these predictions about the effects that these murders would have to the accuracy. So like it kind of strains credulity for me. If I buy into the credulity, then it's also just like, well, the humanists are clearly using this for their own ends, as are the Mitsubishi, even though they claim they're not, right? Like this is not a stable system.
It posits a degree of clockmakerism in the world that I'm uncomfortable with.
Yeah, right.
Not that I disagree with it necessarily, but I am uncomfortable with the idea that the world could be so predicted and predicated upon a few people's continued survival, and that it would be so traceable.
I have no problem with this, like in principle, but like the human computation of this seems implausible.
I'm sorry, did anyone call Sets human recently?
That's true.
Yeah.
The set sets are magic. The set sets are more magic than Bridger. Not quite as magic as the flying cars.
They're neuronal computers.
Yeah, I think this goes back to like the existence of Bridger just messing up the world completely.
Like retroactively too, from before Bridger was born.
Well, because let's pretend like the universe is like a clockwork mechanism and you could predict it like the set sets do. The introduction of Bridger would mess it up immediately.
We have technology nowadays which can turn neurons into photoelectric computing devices. You can implant little lasing devices inside the neurons, which then turn them from a purely electrochemical system into one which uses light to transmit signals.
That's cool.
And if you could, say, do that to an entire human brain and create a photonic computing apparatus in addition to the electrochemical neuronal one, which Ada Palmer does not mention, does not talk about, because Ada Palmer never talks about technology and how it actually works.
Ada Palmer's not a
This is a
scientist.
fantasy story.
It's a fantasy story, yeah.
Yeah.
I find the idea that they could be computers in an order of magnitude that we currently find inconceivable possible. I find that possible.
Yeah, the set sets were fine. It's no more implausible than Bridger to me, but
So the question I have in that case is, okay, we have total mastery of the entire human brain. We have total mastery of, not total, we have functionally total mastery of energy via the flying cars existing.
Yeah.
Why are people working in this world? Why are the utopians not, why have they not colonized Mars, or why do they need 250 years to do it? Why?
There is an explanation in the text.
What's the
And it
explanation?
says that complacent Earth wanted change to stop.
Sure.
They wanted the exponential age to end.
But the utopians don't want this.
one of them,
Utopia's trying not to step on too many toes.
it seemed like it was like Apollo's whole thing was that Utopia might become complacent if the current trajectory continued. But my impression was that was not the like current state, other than like a few, like that one or two people that he mentions.
Apollo's fear is that Utopia might become terminally complacent. Apollo's knowledge was that Utopia had already started to become complacent.
Why doesn't Utopia leave? Why have they not left already?
Because they don't want to anger the Leviathans.
But the Leviathans will care if they're gone, right?
They will. They'll be like, oh, look at Utopia over there having that nice planet, which looks a lot better than ours currently.
We'll send some nukes over.
Yeah, we want it. It's going to be ours now.
Why do they even want a planet? They have energy solved.
Because humans want things.
They have infinite computation. Why have they not built a Dyson sphere?
Okay, Dyson spheres are beyond the scope of Dr. Palmer's work, but also not necessarily mechanically possible. We can talk about Dyson swarms if we want to, but the spheres,
Sure. Yeah, like
not
yeah, it doesn't need to be
2454.
an actual sphere. No, but like again, like if the level of technology is so high, I mean,
Are you talking about how we don't understand the utopians? Because I feel the same way.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't understand why they're not further along.
I was okay with them being not like on Mars yet, but a lot of my thoughts on the Utopia stuff is predicated on me thinking or assuming that we're going to get more of them in books 3 and 4, particularly because their surrender to Madam like was conditional on like very specific things. So like that, I'm just guessing that we will get payoffs of at least some of those.
If you want my answer for why Utopia is not currently on an exponential progress towards terraforming Mars, it's because of trauma from the exponential age.
Why didn't they give Madame an aneurysm or like an untraceable death of some kind?
Because Utopia doesn't kill, right?
Oh.
Right? Utopia doesn't kill.
I see.
Were there any Utopians that knew about OS?
Do utopians not kill, or they just don't kill themselves?
I think just themselves, because
Utopia doesn't kill.
They make weapons. That's killing.
Those are for
Why?
self-defense.
If we have total knowledge of the brain, why isn't there mind control?
There is.
Okay, so there isn't
it
total
be.
knowledge of the brain.
If sets exist, that has to be the case. I'm sorry.
No, there just has to be total understanding of neurons. There does not have to be total understanding of the brain.
And how to manipulate those neurons within a larger system, such that you
Sure,
could
but
make a computer that's.
but not in one where you can still call it human.
I see. Okay, I'm gonna set aside all of my technological problems. Clearly, this is not gonna go anywhere.
He's not. Speaking of Leviathans, this book is boring as shit.
Oh, Leviathan.
Like I'm like 150 pages and it's just definitions over and over and over.
That is
over
the
and
book.
over again. Like, come on, Hobbs.
Are you longing for reading some Desaad?
No, not.
Hobbes wants you to know exactly what his Leviathan is.
I understand, how that kind of thing could be important, but like if your definition of one thing is also the accepted definition, I don't need you to tell me what it is.
You're not thinking like a philosopher here, and
Obviously.
you have to make sure that you're on the same page. Otherwise,
Yep.
it's just going to be nonsense. So I believe that like 30 minutes ago, Kip, you were introducing a question from Sun Gamer.
Oh,
Speaking about philosophers, is Mycroft right that the existence of OS means that humanity has not transcended the Rousseauian natural state?
I thought Rousseauian natural state was like a state of happiness.
Yeah, the Rousseauian natural state. I just read Rousseau. It's much more interesting than Hobbes, by the way. Just as flawed in my opinion so far, at least.
Yeah, Rousseau just like the civilization is what enslaves man. It's not.
Yeah.
Like man's
Natural
nature
state
is
just
good.
like
Yeah.
man's nature is good, and like it's the people who put up signs that say this is mine, and all the people who believed him are the reasons for men's unhappiness, and we'd be so much better if we just lived. It's a lot of
isn't coercion like a big Rousseau thing? Or am I?
that's part of it. I mean, coercing people into accept this idea of civilization. It's very much a romanticization of the barbarian.
Yes,
Noble
it's an
savage.
idea that in your natural state, you exist only in service of basic needs, and all of your advanced societal pressures don't exist. You have compassion for others, so you feed them if they are hungry, but you also just feed yourself from the bounty of nature.
Yeah, the apples fall off the trees and you go over and pick them up.
Yeah, Rousseau's an idiot. Better than Hobbes, though.
The Rousseauian natural state is a couple millennia distant from the time of Mycroft Canner. And so, yes, they've definitely gone past it, but I do not think necessarily that any of the humans in this text are capable of fully transcending it and getting past the stages of societal decline that are posited by Rousseau. Maybe the utopians, maybe. But speaking of them, let's get to my favorite point, or let's get to the point I want to get to.
I got a question though. Is Sun talking about like the potential like future state of humanity after they like transcend this like I don't
He's
know.
talking about the year 2454.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like the Rousseau state.
What about it? The natural state. Because Rousseau posits a number of states. Like there's also a state of decline, which is what he attributes to the civilization of his era.
Yeah, but doesn't Rousseau like also meditate on the idea that like humanity can move past this like what we are in right now, like some sort of like Marxist idea?
I mean, Marx wouldn't come around for a while.
Yeah, Marx was really inspired by Rousseau.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Rousseau inspired the French Revolution. Marx was inspired by the French Revolution.
Rousseau believed that theoretically humanity could come up with a social structure where you could be in control of life, but also everyone would be free.
That's what I mean. So that's what Sun's more talking about.
Yeah. As compared to Hobbes' state where society could be in control, but everyone's at war.
Yeah.
Black law world. But I would like to discuss the assassination of Jehovah Epicurus Donatien Darouet Mason. And specifically,
I thought you wanted to get onto something if you're just going to use his full name.
where were the dragons? Where was Utopia? Why did they not notice Sniper?
They probably did. They're just letting it happen.
Question.
They want this to happen.
Bridger warped the world, Kip. It was divinely ordained. The dragons all had a fever.
They could have showed up in giant mecha, and
Well, a
they
unicorn showed up, right? Like,
And didn't catch.
yeah.
Didn't catch Sniper. And Sniper was on a horse.
Utopia is overrated. That's my contention, I think. Yeah, by Mycroft specifically.
I think Utopia is one of the clearest examples of scientists not making for a good military.
Okay, let's look at Utopia. Who's the best utopian we know? Apollo.
Apollo Mojave.
What was Apollo Mojave's thing?
War.
I think it stands to reason that like maybe the Utopians just want this war to happen.
Apollo wanted the war to happen.
I will go one step further. I will say who was put in place to replace Apollo Mojave?
I forgot his name.
Mycroft Canner.
Oh.
Yeah, because Apollo said that Mycroft was the only person able to carry on his work.
There are things left undone which only Mycroft Canner can complete, including
Yeah.
his war plans in the Iliad, which Mycroft Canner never finished.
Instead, he gave it to some god kid.
Yeah. I thought it was really funny. Apollo was despairing about the facelessness of modern war, and then it's like, maybe we can just do giant mechas. And so far, this war seems incredibly face. Like, it's all about these great people fighting each other at the moment.
Yep.
So I guess Apollo got his wish. Good for you, Apollo.
Personally, I think that Mycroft Canner left Utopia undefended and unready.
Like, they're a bunch of schmucks if they're unready.
For what? The other hives like attack Utopia on the moon?
I mean,
Okay.
only a small percentage of Utopia actually lives on the moon.
Where do
And an even smaller percentage lives on Mars. Most of them live on Earth.
So a small percentage of them live on the moon, just enough to staff like this orbital nuking facility, right?
Also, they gotta make the rockets that move the asteroids and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and the volatile gases.
They can just crash asteroids into the world. This would be amazing technology if flying cars didn't already serve the same function.
Asteroids can do a lot more.
Utopia doesn't kill people.
Utopia doesn't kill people. Absolutely not, no.
They couldn't even kill Mycroft Canner.
Like Madame, they just create the tools by which people will get killed. And if they set off a series of events that cause people to die in some horrible fiery explosion, that's not their fault, it's physics, you know?
Yeah.
Cousins continue to be the best hive.
On that note, I'd be curious about any utopians that are into the humanities in that instance, or in that case, to see if there were any that were questioning the.
Well, we've heard about one of them, right? Who appeared on the 710 list. Hugo Sputnik.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Utopians actually really into the humanities because they seem to really, really respect like art, and like their biggest punishment is just like separating people from art.
Correct.
Or sorry, humanities maybe not the right thing, but the moral someone looking at a high level at the moral implications of their technology. Besides Apollo.
It kind of makes sense. Like that's usually what science and scientists have been criticized for over the centuries.
I think scientists have been the ones criticizing themselves more than anybody else in these areas.
One of the first responses to J.E.D.D. Mason's head getting blown off and getting resurrected is, does Utopia know how to cure death and they're just not sharing it with the rest of us?
Yeah, right. I mean, now they have a bunch of resurrection potions, so maybe?
Define a bunch of.
I don't know. An indeterminate amount that was given to them by Bridger.
When did Bridger give Utopia resurrection potions?
Sorry, no. Like by way of whoever got the resurrection potions off of Bridger's corpse.
So a small number.
Yeah.
Wait, Bridger didn't leave a corpse.
No, I mean, Bridger left Achilles.
Is Achilles Bridger's corpse?
Sure. Basically, right?
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
So how old was Bridger? Like 13?
Well, yeah,
13.
12, 13.
12,
Yeah.
13, yeah.
Okay, so Achilles is stuck in the body of a 13-year-old.
No.
That's hilarious.
Well,
Achilles is stuck with the body mass of a 13-year-old.
Just like a really cut for a 13-year-old.
I thought like is Achilles like the size of Bridger? I thought Bridger made himself
No,
like
it's-
bigger.
Yeah, no, Achilles is like the size of Bridger.
Wow. Why? You could have done
Also,
better.
the size of an ancient Greek, maybe.
That's true. Yeah, like 5'4", 5'3".
I don't know. I think the real Achilles would have been much bigger. Or at least,
7 feet tall.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, no, I don't think that the actual Achilles was like 5'2". No, but I don't know how much bigger because he was always described as being like skillful, not necessarily as like overly large or muscled.
The man
and
could handle
easily
a spear.
mistaken for a woman or a girl.
Okay, but he's also described as the greatest warrior ever, and warriors tend to be big.
Yeah,
It's really helpful on the battlefield.
It does help.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But did he ever actually exist?
Who knows?
Probably not. Yeah.
No, I
You can
bet
be
most
really
of it's probably
good
real.
and really svelte if you're fictional.
I
That's
don't know.
true.
Troy was real, so I don't know. I'm sure there was a
Someone
person
that
on
We
the
have
Greek
some
Trojan
evidence
War.
of a Trojan War. Yeah.
We have an existence of Troy. I have no reason to doubt that there was a war. Probably didn't happen the way they said, and maybe somebody of the name of Achilles wasn't actually there, but maybe there was a really strong warrior.
There was one qualified warrior in the Trojan War, and that's who you're gonna say is qualifying for Achilles here.
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
Sungamer also asks, do you believe that JEDD is who they claim they are?
I don't understand the question. Jed
he's
is claiming divinity from like another universe. Sure, yeah. I see no reason to doubt this at this point.
I agree.
if we're accepting the same theological stuff with Bridger from earlier, then yes.
Yeah.
But that was also something that I was confused is maybe not the quite the right word, but struggled a little bit as far as placing that in the. I did keep thinking, why do I care about this right now, in regards to whether or not Jed is or is not a
god.
Yeah, a god from another universe. Because I'm like, okay, really, what matters is I shouldn't say what matters. A lot of the characters seem to care more about him as basically a political figure for their hive, and certainly you can attribute. That's part of the discussion is could some of that be attributed to his divinity? But
I think Eloise is one of the few people who's actually acting somewhat rationally around Jed.
What about Dominic? He also worships him, right?
In the weirdest way I've ever heard of.
It's a very weird way. Yeah. But yeah, if
I think he is God and I want to make him cry.
if we buy that Jed already has all these abilities, and we buy Bridger's existence in the world, yeah, like God bringing another god into this world as like in an avatar, like that totally makes sense, right? Like worship, yeah.
God bringing two gods into this world in different forms and abilities.
But like God bringing himself into the world, it seems, with Bridger.
Did it? I thought maybe.
Maybe Bridger was another world's god.
No, you're right. It seems like he had an avatar of himself there. Yeah, that's what Bridger would be.
Yeah.
With the powers of the god, but the brain of a human, and then Jed was like the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which is a weird little object example to treat your visitor to, right?
Yeah, it is. And Jed seems to think so too.
And then to take it away.
After one interaction.
I like that scene where Jed just kind of gets it, like, oh, I understand now.
Yeah.
I get it.
And Jed is totally fine with murder now, which I'm a big fan of.
And not just Jed, but by extension, Mycroft.
Yeah.
Yeah, suddenly Jed's fine with murder and Mycroft's fine with murder. I don't know.
The way Mycroft just instantly considered killing Vivian Ancelet was bone-chilling to me.
I'm really interested to see how Mycroft's character acts now. I hope it's this kind of unhinged sociopath kind of way.
It would be interesting, yeah.
And then like writing political pamphlets like the Unabomber in the midst of all this.
He is the 8th Anonymous, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's one more Anonymous after this.
Yeah, 9A.
So who's going to figure out that Mycroft is the Anonymous?
At least one more Anonymous after this.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
there could be another one after that, yeah.
There's one Anonymous that's adding editorial notes to the story that is the 9th Anonymous. Or someone calling themselves the 9th Anonymous. Maybe they're actually the 10th Anonymous and they're lying.
Maybe their name is just 9A.
Maybe.
I would love if next book starts with a chapter by 15A.
Yeah. And then it just turns out that this world is just the world of Nier Automata. Kieran likes that idea.
I really like that idea.
I mean, giant mechs fighting on the moon is not that far from Nier.
Given Bridger, there's nothing that can't happen.
I want Ada Palmer to write a Nier story. I want it so badly right now. I bet Yoko Taro would be into it. I guarantee.
Maybe she can bring Norse mythology and Nier lore into combination.
As they were always meant to be.
I will be curious to see how the war actually plays out, and if Because it's not right. Like the story is not about battle sequences. So it's. I mean,
No.
there's certainly been fighting, but like we're not going to get like these battle sequences. And in fact, the whole point was of the setup is that wouldn't really happen because of like the cars and the technology. So I'll be curious to see if the next two books are about the war, what the war actually looks like. Is the story about similar to these last two, where it's a lot of conversations and like scenes between characters, and then we see like one or two glimpses of like the impact of decisions.
Okay.
You say the story isn't about the battle scenes, but Dominic and Sniper had the
The lamest fight.
best scene in this book.
You take that back. Actually, no, don't take that back because I want the actual best scene for the inevitable kick question on it.
It's not. I did love that scene.
We
though.
we learned that some stun guns can go through stone in this book, and yet still Sniper remains unhit.
Like 50 people missed their shots all at once because
Didn't
Bridger
Dominic,
warped reality.
Hold on to a flying car like Tom Cruise style for like a long time.
Yes,
And then get in a
Yeah.
fist fight.
yes.
with
That's
a wrist that had been like skewered by a sword and could no longer grip a sword, but apparently.
Yeah, and these cars go faster than modern jets.
Look, the engineers are still trying to figure out if there's some sort of like bubble or eddy effect that can be created to hold a person in place.
Just nonsense. How did Dominic get a breath in? How did Dominic not asphyxiate?
Well, that's one of the things that they talk about. They're like, it's amazing.
'Cause he's the manliest man that ever manned without a dick.
Maybe there's a compression wave over the surface of the car.
Total nonsense.
There's like a little pocket of high pressure air that
Oh man, yeah.
wasn't
It's just
at
magic.
5,000 degrees.
So I'm wondering when the cars are going to be used as kamikaze missiles. Not kamikazes because there's not people in them, or maybe there would be people in them. Clearly, these cars have a lot of energy stored in them, so they would make for amazing bombs.
Sniper said they could have, but they didn't.
Yeah, and if the people inside are on the other side of the war, it could be kamikaze. But I think kamikaze implies that, like they're killing themselves like out of sacrifice. So no, that wouldn't work.
I think kamikaze implies that there is a kami there that's blowing them divinely along the way.
Maybe before the war.
Is the Kami a set?
Probably. You know what? That's pretty close, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I like it.
Okay. I'm going to ask everyone for their favorite scenes, and if the one that I'm thinking of doesn't come up, we'll talk about it after.
It's Mycroft and Cornell Mason crying over Apollo. That's the best scene.
We finally get some more about Apollo Mojave.
Like that was a really good scene. Like I was actually emotionally invested in that. I thought it was very poignant. I like Cornell. I like Mycroft. I think I like Apollo. I really liked the dramatic setup of it's Mycroft and Saladin going off against Apollo and whatever his squeeze's name was, and it's kind of like a tragic.
Saint Marty.
There we go.
Despite Cornell and Mycroft's best attempts, they could not uncover anything special about her.
Yeah. Totally unremarkable. And there's like this fated battle, like star-crossed battle between these people of different philosophies, and the one who had the best philosophy would win. Great. Fantastic. No notes. I want more of that. Just more of that all the time. Less Sniper and Dominic.
In like the setting of like the rain and like that's one scene where like the kind of physical description of what was going on was very
Yeah.
It was a really haunting is the word that's coming to mind. Atmosphere, which I thought was very effective.
I think it works partially for me because both Mycroft and Cornell Mason are not like... I mean, Mycroft is kind of emotional, but Cornell Mason is usually like a very put-together kind of guy, and he's just losing it in this scene. And I thought it worked.
He's often a put-together guy, but he also has a big temper.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Roman emperor, so that is par for the course.
Exactly.
It's in the job description.
It's part of the cosplay. You got to do it.
I want him to use his black hand more. I think he should have killed Madame with it.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
She's a Blacklaw. It's easy.
Have we seen him use it?
No, we haven't.
Our Blacklaw is just
They're outside the law.
Yeah, okay. So like oh yeah, so anyone could.
If your own law doesn't forbid killing a Blacklaw, then you're fine.
Okay.
And Cornell Mason reserves the right to kill anybody. Good job.
But it is perhaps a power better not utilized in Cornell's mind.
That's reasonable.
He is very sparing with it.
Extremely.
Yeah. I do really like the title Imperator Destinatus. That's a very cool title.
Everything sounds cool in Latin, man.
Yeah.
I like Lex Familiaris,
Yeah.
which is the law that Cornell can always use to forbid Mycroft from wishing harm against himself.
I like pupilla dentata.
Great.
You got it?
Okay. Kieran, what's your favorite scene from this book?
I like when the cousins are just deciding to dissolve their government, and then Eloise shows up and she's like, no, stop. And then the European Parliament blows up.
And then a nun.
Yeah. None comes in hysterical.
Yeah, I love that scene, partially because it also makes the cousins just the best hive.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They're faced with the fact that their government has been working on a lie, and that their democracy is really not a very, very good system, and it's not working. But they still want to do what they want to do, and that helping people and being like the mothers of the world. And they just accept that, and they talk about it, and then the Parliament blows up, which is awesome.
And they're like, let's adopt an interim constitution and make ourselves no longer special except for our aims.
I thought it was a great explanation, a breakdown of why direct democracy is never feasible.
Yeah, the part where she says, like, I was able to trace no actions directed by our hive. Everything that I was able to look at was reactive. We have no policy platform whatsoever.
Mhm.
And then like her husband's like, sorry, I kind of helped out. And she's like, yeah, we only survived thanks to my husband.
And he's like, I just kind of inherited your hive. It wasn't my fault. I
Also
inherited your
more-
hive because I guessed who the previous owner of your hive was.
I would say more about corrupt systems and circular. Or
Sorry,
cyclical-
next up to leave your hide is Mycroft Canner.
That's a good reason to get a constitution.
And they were like, no, we got to fix this. Storm, what's your favorite scene?
It was the Mycroft and Mason at Quinnell at Apollo's tomb, but I did have a backup, which would be the Utopian surrender
Okay.
to Madame.
That's a good
Just because
scene.
we don't really get many instances of the Utopians actually
Speaking.
like they're very well, yeah. They're very removed, like by their nature. They're removed from what's going on, and so this was them conceding, like, hey, we recognize that you've already won, and there's nothing we can do to stop you. So we're just gonna get what we can out of this. But like the actual like scene was just really interesting to read, and the back and forth with them and Madame, and I don't know, the Utopians are cool. I mean, I know we had spent like 10 minutes talking about how they're like awful, but like, but like
They can be awful and cool.
Yes, they're awful and cool. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting just to see them forced to reckon with actually taking part in society. And that be in almost, or when you could almost say their surrender is a consequence of them not really doing that, and then like when they realize that they have to, that it's too late, and Madame had already won, or she was going to win, I should say.
I think it's amazing the level of concessions she was able to extract from them. Just like basically total control of their hive
It seemed too easy, actually.
for the next 250 years.
Yeah.
They're really betting on that 250-year future. Because they basically were like, yeah, sure, to all of her
Okay.
stuff.
So they didn't give her 250 years. They gave her like 100, I thought, right?
I think it was 150.
Oh, maybe.
They have a shorter time period than 250. Still long.
I kind of hope there is a time skip. Well, I don't know. I guess we're probably going to end the war next, but I would have been curious to see what Madame's world would look like. But yeah.
It's funny because even unconditional surrenders in the modern world, even they don't have terms as unfavorable to them as Utopians just gave to Madame.
Here's our best people for the next, like,
Here's the best people and a blank check.
Yeah.
Otherwise, for anything that you ever want.
Except weapons of mass destruction. That's it.
That's a hell of a concession. Jeez.
Which they seem to be
Bad
making anyway.
negotiators.
Utopia doesn't make harbingers. Come on. They don't kill people.
They don't kill people. No.
I think you're buying the Kool-Aid, man.
No, I'm just saying the talking points.
Just parroted by Mycroft all the time. It's relentless.
I want to share 2 other scenes that I love.
And Kato, they're not dirty like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Wait, but before the I want to see Kip. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is Bridger's death.
Oh, that was the one I wanted to share. Yeah.
Yep.
That was a good scene.
My favorite scene is Bridger saying, "Don't touch me. I don't want to touch anyone."
I killed Mama doll.
Didn't want her to see me turn into this. Couldn't bear
That
it.
seems-
Bridger's total collapse of safety, of sense of self, of purpose in life is just humbling around him until
And
he
guilt.
finally kills himself.
It's just so sad. It's so tragic.
It's a rough scene.
And like, who knows what effect he was having on Mycroft, even unintentionally in those last few moments.
Well, I
We
have
might find
thoughts
out.
about that, but I have thoughts about all the things that Bridger has said in this book and last book that I
Yeah,
can't
'cause,
talk
like-
about yet.
I loved Bridger, and it was very sad. I cried.
I cry every time. Every time.
Yeah, it wasn't clear the extent of Bridger's powers until like the last couple chapters, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess he warps reality to an extent far, far, far greater than was implied before.
I still don't think I understand the scope of the powers, but
And how the toy soldiers disappearing is probably a safety mechanism. Him trying to put limits and times and restrictions and things on his powers isn't just because he's a kid and he doesn't have object permanence like Thisbe thinks. No, it's because he fully understands how dangerous the things that he does are. And he doesn't want anything that he does now as a kid to have lasting effects.
Mhm.
But he can't help being afraid of it.
Yeah, and like everybody that he's perceived has probably been reshaped by him.
Yep.
Right.
He is a contagion.
So he observed Jed for a while. Is Jed changed by Bridger now? Or is Jed like an uncorrupted piece because Jed is actually a god?
Jed's whole thing seems to be that he was limited by his body, by his like physical body.
I would say that Jed's mind is immune, but his body might not be.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a very good question.
Assuming that Jed actually does exist in an alternate universe.
Yeah, and it isn't just insane. Man, that would be so lame. It's just like, oh, Jed was just crazy, I guess.
That'd be actually a fun explanation.
That would be terrible.
I really do want to know what the researchers at Gordian and Utopia both think about Jed. Because
Maybe
they
we'll find
do seem to be the only people with science.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Gordian, like I can't even tell if they're I don't know what they are at this point. They have no people who are innovating besides Jed, apparently.
No, Gordian thinks that no one in the entire world is innovative like Jed is.
Right. But like Faust
Including
was saying
Utopians. Yeah.
that they don't have anybody if Jed doesn't join them. Like their innovation will come to a standstill without him.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? Is it just the fact that they don't think that? I mean, there's a common criticism with science these days, right? Like that nobody's able to truly be a polymath, and you can't synthesize new discoveries yourself. It always has to be with huge, enormous groups of people, and this is not a good way of truly making big advances forward.
Did you like that quote in chapter the 14th, The Suicide of Cato Weeks Booth?
Like polymaths don't exist.
Such an unkind mistress science is, her branches so infinite, each subspecialty demanding a lifetime and a lab to even scratch the surface. Cato had been science's true disciple all his life, yet does she bless him now with knowledge enough to cobble a gun from the trash in the dustbin and defend himself?
Yes.
No.
That's a good line. That's a really good line.
That's a good line.
Like the implication is that absolutely Cato could have done that if he wanted.
Apparently he couldn't.
Mm-mm. So why was it called the Suicide of Cato Weeksbrew? He's not dead. He's alive.
Well, he tried to commit suicide with the cyanide pill there.
I guess. So, on top of Mycroft's narrative, unreliable narrator skills, We just have maybe Bridger magic did before he died.
Maybe that's where the bombs to kill J.E.D.D. Mason came from.
Yeah, maybe. I
What
like how
is-
his another name is Mike. I like that he just called
Yes,
Mike.
Mike.
I read Micro Megas today, actually. It was okay.
I liked it. Yeah, it's an interesting story.
Did it give you insight into Mike?
Not really.
Really, this story of
I-
two godlike beings coming to the earth and meeting the inhabitants and treating them like ants is not.
I've already read Flatland. A similar theme was already hammered home to me. I think it's an appropriate name. I don't think the story is especially insightful to understanding this one.
I got a question.
Okay.
Where the hell was Carlisle the second half of the book?
Oh, blissfully gone.
I like the scene with Carlisle and Jed. And Jed's like, God made man, and man made God, and they're looking into each other. I can't remember anything that happens to Carlisle after that.
I can't either.
Aren't they portraits of a portrait, like a spiraling nautilus shell? Yeah. I like that analogy. But yeah, then Carlisle disappears.
It did sound like kind of like deep thoughts, man.
Deep thoughts with the deep, yeah.
Deep thoughts. I'm going to close off this with one final question. Has the exploration of gender, power, and kink in the first 2 books made you reconsider how you view any of those in real life?
Still no.
Still no?
Not really.
I
Still
mean,
no for me.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd say it's still no, but again, largely because
If that was intended, I would want the characters to be less cartoonishly dramatic and to feel more like actual people. As is, they are cartoonishly dramatic. For better and for worse sometimes. I think mostly for better. Again, it's a stylistic choice. But this is not giving me insight into how actual humans act.
Okay.
Do we have a lot more questions?
We have a couple questions, but we've already covered it. Like, Chesky asked, do 7 people surrender, or are there separate surrenders in the story? Ian asked, what is the benefit of an unreliable narrator? Sungammer asked, is Mycroft right that... Oh, sorry. Do you believe that Jed is who they claim they are, and do you believe Sniper is right to assassinate them? And Torre asks, I get the feeling when reading this book that it's really all about the abuse of power and how power corrupts.
We didn't get to some of your questions. The role of genetic engineering.
Yeah,
Or...
I couldn't figure out a way to bring that one in organically.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I mean, I don't think we answered Tor's question or Ian's.
And we also didn't answer my question about, is Mycroft responsible for what Bridger did? Which I want to bring up Mycroft's broken childhood as a response to that question.
It's a real chicken and the egg situation, right?
Are you in a hurry or something?
It really is. Oh, I thought you were, Huron.
Oh, no. I put in the chat. It was, my appointment was actually yesterday.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, no, we can continue. Sorry, I thought I was keeping you.
Oh, no.
Okay. Then let's go with my question then. Is Mycroft responsible for what Bridger did?
Bridger is responsible for Mycroft making himself being responsible for what Bridger did.
Wait, sorry. Clarify what specifically?
What Ash said.
Is Mycroft responsible for Bridger killing themselves?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think so. Well,
No more than the rest of.
They raised them on the Iliad, on Apollo's Iliad.
Right. I think a total reasonable interpretation is that Bridger magicked Mycroft into the person that Bridger wanted to take care of him.
But then didn't. Spent a night with Saladin instead.
But didn't Bridger come to kind of curl up as well?
For a little bit, but then Mycroft let Bridger leave.
Yeah, that's
alone.
True.
With just some
Bridger
toy
magicked
soldiers.
Mycroft into that mindset as well.
I think
that's indefensible.
I think you're right. I think Mycroft's the reason why Bridger killed himself.
I think Mycroft thinks that.
I think Mycroft's right. He filled his mind with war and games. He gave him the Iliad, told him how to make war. He actually made a war, potentially. And he felt guilt over it and did the only thing that he really felt he could do, which isn't really that unreasonable, too.
Yep, and then pretended that other people needed him more than Bridger did.
Yeah.
His stupid... Oh, God, I hate Saladin so much. And I hate Mycroft for loving Saladin like that.
It's really weird.
It's really weird.
It's
and I don't get it at all. It's hard to
relationship.
About half of this book is on the last day, or the 7th day of this history. And you can see why, because it's when everything falls apart completely.
Yeah.
But, as I promised earlier, I want to tie this back to Mycroft's broken childhood. And Mycroft says that they were raised in the think tanks of Alba Longa by the genius Marty Bash. They had every hive thinking that they were going to do wonders. They said they had the finest education. And I'm sorry, but what in Mycroft's life makes you believe that their upbringing was the finest?
Well, you see, Mycroft got to grow up with Apollo.
To me, it sounds like a pressure cooker that made them explode.
Didn't Mycroft already blow up his birth bash?
It's implied.
Yeah.
But what were they doing to him? Do you think that maybe they were grooming him to be emperor and possibly torturing him?
Is that
Preemptively?
it?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Wait, was his birth bash Masons?
His
the
birth
Martys
bash was
weren't-
picked by the emperor itself.
Okay.
They were the Terra Firma bash. They were the gardeners of Alba Longa. They were the only ones who got to be picked by the emperor to be part of the Alba Longa think tanks.
Okay.
So was Cornell Mason like a second pick?
Cornell Mason might have been a third pick.
Oof. I mean, he seems to be doing great. So
Aeneas Marty might have been the first pick.
Aeneas. Yeah, that's a name.
In light of all this, I will amend my answer to the Mycroft and Bridger, Mycroft responsibility for Bridger death statement. But
What are you amending it to?
I initially said I didn't really think he was responsible, and I think this is enough information that there's a very good argument that he was.
We convinced you?
Yes.
I'm unconvinced. Well, sorry. My position is still just, Bridger made Mycroft into the kind of person that would do this. So, like, what does responsibility even mean when you're interacting with someone like Bridger?
Let's not get into theogony.
I keep saying that this is a series about the responsibility of parenting and child rearing.
Especially when you're raising God.
But also when you're raising the child who raises God.
RJ just hears about theogony, much like Book of the New Sum.
But like 2 generations back, the Terra Firma Bash couldn't have possibly known that Mycroft Canner would have God in his care.
If we buy into one of Jed's theories, everybody is God, really. So,
Yeah. But it's okay. He persisted. Therefore, everyone else probably does too.
yeah, it's fine.
It doesn't matter. If they're gods, they continue to live in their universe. And if they're not, then they weren't worthy of caring about, right?
It's not a big deal. That's fair, Jed. I think that's fair.
It is one of Jed's most alien viewpoints.
I get it. I think I get it, yeah.
Is that a viewpoint you want in a leader?
He sees the big picture. That's what I want to see in a leader.
A leader who can't do the trolley problem, who thinks that human lives only matter if they happen to be gods, and who can't speak in a recognizable language. That's definitely all things that I want in my world leader.
Well, you see,
the last
Jed
point's
needs to have someone to interpret for him when he makes decrees.
Nothing possibly
One
could
person.
Yeah, one person. Nothing could possibly go wrong there.
How much is Mycroft putting his own spin on things as he's interpreting for Jed, intentionally or otherwise?
I think that he's not really putting his own spin on it because he worships Jed.
As we know, he's not putting his own spin on this story either.
Well, no, but
Mycroft's translations are always impartial.
I do think
translations.
I do think that this is one area where Mycroft is not. He feels he has a sacred obligation to not twist what Jed is saying.
Why?
Yes, and no one has ever misinterpreted their god before.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so all right, Mycroft believes he's being honest about it, whereas he would probably acknowledge in other parts that he's definitely twisting what's going on to his point of view.
Mycroft is insane. Mycroft talks to Thomas Hobbes in his head.
True.
Don't forget about all the murders. I'm starting to think this Mycroft guy doesn't actually exist.
If we buy into Ash's theory that Bridger was just this huge reality warper, how many different Mycroft canners have we seen across the course of this story?
I mean, like, how many times does he interact with Bridger?
Does he have to interact with Bridger for it to change, or does Bridger just have to think about him?
What is the smallest unit of time?
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, that's also true.
You could always split up a unit at a time into a smaller unit of time, so infinite.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get into
Infinite
those
Mycroft-Tanners.
paradoxes.
I believe in infinite Mycroft-Tanners, actually. Possibly
I
more
mean-
than I believe in one.
We have Achilles in the story. We'll probably get a tortoise at some point. Maybe they'll race.
It's a different topic.
Who's going to kill Achilles?
How is
Hector.
Achilles going to die? Does he have the invulnerability?
Who is Hector in this story?
And if so, which type?
Who is Hector in the story? He's got to be Sniper, right?
No, because Hector's awesome.
Hector.
Hector's got to be Jed.
Jed? No.
Yeah, the antagonist of Achilles.
Achilles.
And also just kind of a really cool dude.
Achilles and Jed are on the
self-sacrificing.
same side right now.
Kind of, but like I'm talking about like Bridger and Jed, right? They're still gods, but they're opposites.
They didn't seem like opposed forces to me. They seemed like complementary forces, and then humanity was getting in the way.
I didn't say opposed forces. I said I don't remember what I said, but that's not what I meant.
Opposites.
Opposites. Thank you. Because they're both gods, but they're different aspects of God. And I like the idea of Hector as a Jed. Jed as Hector. Is Patroclus in the story? How about Odysseus?
Patroclus is in the story. It's Aimer.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Sniper would be Paris and Hector in this story.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Archer,
Aeneas?
I assume. Is Aeneas Aeneas?
Aeneas
I
is
think
Aeneas,
probably-
Mason's Aeneas.
No, who would Aeneas be? I
A
don't know.
utopian, I guess?
Some
Yeah.
child, right? Yeah, they've got to be a child at this point, right?
Probably.
Maybe the leader of the Romans?
Maybe someone in the junior science squad.
Yeah, and, found like a city on Mars, and the city on Mars is going to be really great.
Always somebody not important to the story, and just somebody writes a story about them later that might sound kind of interesting if you're into propaganda.
Maybe one of the unnamed servicers.
Thisbe would be Cersei, I think. Right?
Yeah, Thisbe's Cersei.
Except for way less competent.
Is this be Cersei or... I got to think on that one.
Or like Calypso, or...
I mean...
Next time I read this, I'm going to look through all the Iliad and Odyssey parallels.
Danae is Persephone? No, not Persephone. Whoever Odysseus' wife is.
Penelope.
Penelope, that's it. Yeah. Director Ando is, of course, Odysseus.
You mean Danae is not Helen?
I mean, like, the war wasn't actually started because of Danae. It started because... I don't know who the equivalent of Helen would be. Madame, maybe?
If you listen to Sniper, it was definitely because of Danae.
Who's Telemachus?
Sniper is, like, not who I go to for political commentary. Sniper is, like, a TikTok political commentator. Just run amok with a sniper rifle.
A Twitch streamer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to denigrate the good name of Twitch streamers like that, but...
Well, I was like, Kip just doesn't want to say that Sniper is on TikTok.
Sniper just seems like they're ready for longer form content.
I don't know, though.
I don't think Sniper is going to exit the story, but I so badly want it to. I think that Sniper is going to be around until the end. I think that Sniper is going to be like on the last page of Perhaps the Stars.
Wonderful.
And I'm upset about it.
I don't remember.
That
so
would
I'm
be
not gonna
interesting.
make
And this is how I end my tale, Sniper's story.
Sniper goes up and kills whoever is left standing.
Aren't you glad that I took over from Mycroft in the Built to Battle?
Oh, God. Yeah. No, Sniper, I'm not. You're the worst. I don't understand why everyone likes you.
I know, just got one chapter now. No, I got the whole book.
The whole book.
Going back to that, do you now think that Sniper's chapter should have been included?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Well, sorry. I think it's a bit redundant with the duel that Sniper did, where Sniper is loudly just exclaiming their political philosophy.
You don't think it was foreshadowing?
I think that what he could have done, I think that would have been more narratively effective for me, is for Sniper to have the Sniper chapter, and then Sniper shooting Jed, and then Mycroft saying, and then Sniper played a recording on, like C chapter 2 or whatever for what Sniper believes.
Okay. Do you think that if the world was a little bit different, that Danae and Ganymede would have been in the think tanks of Alba Longa.
People in this, maybe Madame, doesn't want females in positions of power, so not Danae. And Ganymede seems like kind of a himbo, so
Females.
yeah.
Sound like a Ferengi when you said that.
I don't know how else to say it. I can't say women.
No, it was specifically your tone. It sounded very Ferengi.
Females.
Who goes into the think tanks? Or is raised by them?
I don't think it was ever fully clear, but it was only ever really made clear that the Emperor could choose one of the Bashes.
Okay.
I think the rest might have been some sort of like Romanovan experiment or like a multi-hive agreement.
Okay.
I think it was a multi-hive agreement. And then maybe there's like a competition or something. But
One thing I will be curious to see, because I'm sure that books 3 and 4 will go into this, are what I'm looking at as the, like, at least Apollo's thesis statement of the real question was if I would destroy this world to save a better one. Apollo didn't just think the world was necessary to keep the next one from wiping us all out. They thought that we had to make the world less perfect where no one would be willing to face the hardships of moving on. And Apollo thought we need suffering to create people capable of enduring suffering. This is from the Caesar and Micro conversation about Apollo. And I know we touched on this with the Utopians earlier, but I'm hoping that the story goes into that a little bit more.
what do we think about like a young man deciding that he needed to start a war for the world?
To me, it sounded like Apollo was very much of the philosophy that hard times create good men create good times create weak men create hard times kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the vibe I was getting.
Which I think is like actually kind of nonsense, but it's popular.
Hey, you had a lot to say
Yes.
about these security forces of this era.
They're terrible. They're so incompetent, but Bridger magicked them so it's fine.
I think there's something to the idea. Not that the whole cycle is like that, but that
There's definitely something to the idea that peaceful times create bad peacekeepers.
It creates complacency, perhaps, and a lack of appreciation for what you have.
and a lack of understanding of what came before.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, those last 2 points.
Sorry, back to the Greek parallels. Homer is Palmer. They both end in ER, and they're both authors.
I think Palmer has 2 eyes.
What?
Palmer.
Did you?
She has 2 eyes.
Homer
And Homer has one.
Maybe.
apocryphally in like one source from a long time ago that would have no idea if he had one eye or not.
Yeah, like Homer even exists and wasn't just like a collection of different people, right?
We can't prove that about Palmer either.
That's true. I mean, with the modern publishing process, every book is the result of many people, so.
Oh my god, I just realized that James Joyce is also Homer. He has one eye. Kinda, metaphorically.
Kieran, you're a pleasure.
Yeah. Is there any other things we want to talk about regarding the book?
Other than Toure's statement about the series being about the corruption of power.
I think it's just kind of like a political belief I have that power is going to centralize, and power is centralized in this world. I think it's just kind of an inevitability. So I guess I don't know. I think it's just like a basic tenet of politics, really.
If it doesn't centralize, is it power?
Yeah, right.
I don't think the story is about that, but yeah, I think that is happening.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly something that Dr. Palmer is very interested in talking about. Like she spends a lot of time on characters either talking about it, using or abusing their power, or reacting to power that other people have. So yeah, I agree with you, and that's not the main point, but it's certainly
It exists.
It certainly takes up a lot of the space of the plot, which I like as a not abuse of power, but discussions of politics of how people in this world use power.
I think that about does it for discussion of Seven Surrenders. I look forward to meeting with the three of you for the Will to Battle.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ash, Storm, Hurin. Thank you, Craig, for lending us this corner of your media empire. Thank you, Horizon Brave, for getting us all started. And thank you to the Jingle Punks for giving us our intro and outro music.
I like it.
I like Galactic Damages. I occasionally listen to the whole song when I'm bored editing. It's fun. We'll meet you next time. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.